What's up, everyone? It's the Pizza Buffet Week 11 in the NFL right here on Forward Progress, presented by Fanduel, part of the Hammer Betting Network. I'm Rob Pizzola. I'm here with you for the next hour leading up until kickoff. Good morning to everyone in the chat in the early going here. See a lot of usual faces, people who are playing this at their NFL tailgates. Appreciate all the love from the people in the chat in the early going here. Levi already off the top. Is it just me, or are there more line moves on game day than in years past? So I was up pretty late last night and looking at the board this morning relative to when I went to bed at like 2 or 3 in the morning. Certainly a lot of stuff happening overnight, which I'll try to parse for everyone here over the course of the entire show. As usual, phone is, I don't want to say it's off, but it's away from me. I'm not looking at it over the course of the show. If you see news in real time, drop it in here. I'm very focused on the game previews. I can react to it in real time. I'm going to give my numbers on each game and any props that I like as well. If I give out a prop and I don't give a number, you can assume that I like it across the entire market. People are constantly asking me for more props, so I'll give my favorite prop look in each game if I do like a prop in that game. As always, my picks from earlier in the week might have changed. There's 2 possible reasons for that. 1, I think that the market's moved too far towards one side. Or 2, something has happened since my earlier opinion in the week, whether that's injury news, weather. Actually, there's no real weather concerns today. That would have changed my opinion on the game. But I'm going to put up my model numbers for each and every one of those games. We'll end the show today with anytime touchdown scores. I have 3. They are disgusting this week. They are longer shots than I usually give out on the show, but I do have 3 that I like that I think are valuable. And as always, let's get the chat going. If you have questions, I'm going to start those questions. I'll get to as many as I can at the end of the show today as well, or intersperse them into the show if they make sense. But let's get into it. Before we do, this is the worst possible time you could be betting the NFL. Someone sent me a DM the other day that was like, well, Rob, you keep saying that, but your ROI this year is like 8% on the show. I've been putting your model numbers into the Kelly criterion formula. It doesn't matter. I've done this for 3-5 years now, even prior to the Hammer Betting Network, where it was just a Periscope show. I know at this point, I'm not going to be beating the limits that are out there on the major sides and totals. You got some sports books that are taking 6-figure bets right now. That's not where my bread and butter is. My bread and butter is betting earlier in the week, getting ahead of some of these line moves, parsing a lot of the injury news right away. That's where I have my edge. But I'll give you a look into my process. You decide what you want to do. Ultimately, try to bet earlier in the week. Before we get started, a couple favors from you. Smash the like button down below. Let YouTube know that you enjoy the content. They'll serve it out to more people. If you can personally share it on your socials, click that share button, get it out on Twitter, Facebook, wherever the hell you want to get it out, even your WhatsApp groups. That works well for me as well. And of course, if this is your first time here and you enjoy what you see, subscribe here to Forward Progress. We got lots of good content on this Forward Progress channel covering NFL betting. Okay. Packers and Bears are where we're going to start here. Looking at the market on this game right now, relative to where my numbers are right now. Pretty decent lean to the Chicago Bears at this point. Now that most of the market is at 6, FanDuel still posting a 5.5, total 40.5 left to right across the board. No weather concerns in Chicago today. Looks like a really nice day. That's, you eliminate the mid-Chicago November wind, which we got last week in that particular game. And that doesn't look like it's going to affect things. I expected to see a little bit of buyback towards the over when you consider the health of Chicago's O-line compared to last week, but the market never got there. Tevin Jenkins is out at guard for Chicago, but they get both their tackles back. Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright are back. We don't know about Jair Alexander yet for the Packers. The expectation is he's going to play off a bye week. Now, the question is, do the O-linemen help the Bears offense? And does the absence or the firing of Shane Waldron change things for this team? I talked about this on Wednesday Best Bets, but Caleb Williams on 3rd and long this year, and by long, I'm saying 7+ yards, has a 19.2% success rate. That is by far the worst number in the league. It's 4% worse than Deshaun Watson was when he was starting for the Cleveland Browns. They're not picking up third and longs. Part of that is because they get into those situations. He cannot process the field. He takes a lot of sacks. And they have too many negative plays early on in drives that they're constantly getting themselves into these situations. I don't know what things are going to look like for the Bears with Thomas Brown. I do expect that they try to stick to the run game a little bit more, which is, why I was advocating for the under a little bit earlier in the week. Perhaps they have Caleb Williams do a little bit more with his feet as well. I don't know. It's a really challenging game to handicap because of that. But the O-lineman back should help in theory, right? Last week was an abomination. You had Patriots defenders living in the backfield the entire game, 9 sacks. I doubt that's going to happen again this week, but I also can't predict that it's just going to flip on a switch. I do like one prop for the Bears offense in this game. That's Roschon Johnson over on his rushing yards. 12.5 at Fanduel. There's 11.5s out there. I would always suggest you shop around in the prop market, get the best of the number. But this is there's a few rumblings that Johnson will get a little bit more work. They've relied extremely heavily on DeAndre Swift with some limited success. Don't go nuts with it, but if I'm buying the press clippings here and reading the tea leaves correctly, Johnson gets a little bit more run than usual in this game, and I think the rushing yards is low. On the other side, it's really hard to predict Green Bay's offense as well. Jordan Love should be back to full health now after the bye week. He wasn't anywhere close to 100% before the bye week. Green Bay should be able to run the ball. Chicago's run defense took a big hit with Andrew Billings going on IR. Offense is healthy. The problem is the extremes when it comes to the Packers. You get a lot of boomer bust games. I do think that they have some decent success in this game, but ultimately they are reliant on explosives as an offense. They're not a high success rate team that consistently moves the ball down the field. Tough game to handicap. At 6, it would be Bears or nothing for me. But I don't really have much going on here in terms of major rooting interest for today's game. Will we give Grey Cup picks before we get into the second game? No. I would be lying if I don't have an edge on. I saw the Argos took a bunch of money yesterday from 10.5 to 8.5. No, that's about all I can tell you. I've watched maybe 2 Toronto Argonauts games this year, and they were back in August. All right, Cleveland and New Orleans. Big time line movement in this game. Me and Clive talked about this one on Sunday night last week. And I mean, the opener at 3 didn't make sense. Got bet to 2.5 quickly. That didn't really make a lot of sense. Now we're all the way out to Cleveland minus 1.5 at FanDuel. Some books out to 2. Total in the game at FanDuel is 44.5. Most other spots are at 44 here. I talked about this a lot this week on You Better You Bet. Wrong team favored. Injury report improved slightly for the Saints as the week went on, and we still don't know the full degree of what's happening here with the Saints defense. Pete Warner went DNP, and then got a limited practice in on Friday with a hand injury. You have Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's missed the last couple of games at corner, who got 2 full practices in, but is dealing with a hamstring injury. That'll improve things for the secondary a little bit. Obviously, they traded Lattimore. Paulson Adebo's on IR. Jameis, previous to the bye, had a pretty horrible game against the Chargers. Played well against the Ravens, sucked against the Chargers. Both of those teams, though, can take away the run, and the Saints can't. And if Pete Warner's out, that's especially a huge blow to them. Now, Nick Chubb has been a shell of his former self since he's come back, but you have healthy O-line for the Browns, minus Jedrick Wills, who hasn't played a lot this year, against a team that gives up a lot in the running game. And that's something Cleveland can work into or used to their advantage. Works in their favor when they don't have to have Jameis drop back and throw over and over and over. So I like that matchup quite a bit for them. And if they do have to throw, you have a Saints team that is down a couple of cornerbacks, which in particular hurts them. Other side of things, this has been talked about a lot, but you have Derek Carr going up against a defense that tends to give quarterbacks a lot of problems. Now, it's not the same as it was earlier in the year. Za'Darius Smith is gone. He showed up as Rasheed Wallace in Detroit today, which, by the way, was a great look walking into the stadium. Myles Garrett's still there, though. They still have a very good defensive interior, and that's kind of the way to beat Derek Carr. You look at the success he had against the Falcons last week, lots of time to throw, was able to connect downfield on some big shots to MVS. We don't know if Cedric Wilson's playing today, but this wide receiving core, MVS, Mason Tipton, Dante Pettis, Kevin Austin, that's not great, especially if Cleveland can generate any pressure up front. So I completely understand the move. I get it. I think most people understand the move. It's a question of whether or not it's gone too far. If I hadn't bet Cleveland, there's no chance I'd be betting Cleveland now, the absolute peak in market for this particular game. So at this point, not sure that there's much to do. Mike Burns likes Chubb over, played Chubb ladders to 150. Don't hate those looks. I mean, that opener was out there and it got cooked real quick. Yeah, Patrick says it too. Chubb rush yards open at 55.5 got destroyed. No surprise that people are looking at that. I think logically it makes a ton of sense. Third game on the board, Rams and Patriots. This would be my biggest disagreement with the market so far. It's been game day money for the Patriots here. I make the Rams a 6-point favorite in this game. Total, I'm pretty much right on. So I can look at the way that I'm handicapping this and the way that my model runs and compare that to the market right now. For the Rams offense, Rob Havenstein, their right tackle, is out. That was a significant blow to them last week. Their second tackle, or the backup, Joe Noteboom, who I think isn't very good, is not playing today either. So they're starting Warren McClendon, who's a 5th-round pick out of Georgia. And if he's worse than Noteboom, it's going to be bad. But that, to me, is really the only substantial advantage I think that this defense of the Patriots will have against this Rams offense. The Rams can spread the field. They can run the ball against the Patriots team that's not very good against the run. That'll take a lot of the pressure off of Matthew Stafford. If you look back to last week, they struggled to establish the run against the Dolphins. The Dolphins got Zach Sealer back on Monday Night Football. Him and Calais Campbell in the middle of that defense have been unreal this year. The Patriots just don't have that. So I do think this is a game, even though it's outdoors, it's good conditions today. I know it's not the fast track in New England, but I do like the Rams offense to be able to score here. The other side of the ball, it's going to be much more challenging for New England to do the same thing. Rams have a really underrated defense right now. They have some injury concerns going into the game. Byron Young has been dealing with a knee injury. He had a 3-time limited practice this week. Josh Wallace, one of their corners, has a hip injury as well. But for the most part, at full health, this defense has been very good. And the problem with the Patriots is there's, again, nothing explosive here. You have a bad O-line with bad weapons at wide receiver and a team that just gets to third down way too often. They get to third down on almost 56% of their series this year. The only team worse than that is the Chicago Bears. I love Drake May. I think he's going to be a great pro. I saw John Gruden talking about him this week and how much he likes him. But even when we look at these Drake May games that he started, this is not a team that is lighting it up. They're 23rd in success rate since Drake May has taken over. They don't have very many games where they have looked like a succinct offense. And you look at the Rams in the last 4 weeks, they're second in sacks with 15, 20th in pass, fourth in pass defenses with 20. They're playing really good football right now. And I still think that there's a pretty large gap between these two teams. So disagree with the market move towards the Patriots here. I think the Rams are valuable. Again, my opinion probably does not matter at all at this point into the size of the market that we're at here, but I think the Rams are a good look at this price. From a prop perspective, Austin Hooper is getting a lot of run on the Patriots offense. And again, because of the game state, I think the Rams will be leading a bunch. I think Austin Hooper's receptions are priced a little bit too low. 1.5 right now, minus 120 at Fanduel is the best in market so far. So that's one that I like. Austin Hooper over on receptions. Jeffrey says, I want to take them in Survivor. Thoughts? At this point, it's really hard for me to suggest anything for Survivor because it's so pool dependent. You really have to take into account all the factors that are going on in your specific pool, including who you think other people will pick. For me, I think the Rams are somewhere in like the 68 to 70% range to win this game and might make for a better option than maybe a team like Minnesota, who would be more heavily picked, or Green Bay, but it's all pool dependent. It's really, really tough for me to pick that. Okay, before we get into our next game, bet the NFL season on Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. For me, Fanduel is a standout sportsbook because it has a very friendly user interface, good competitive odds, wide range of markets, great live betting experience. They provide innovative promos. It's honestly a go-to for both casual and experienced bettors, and they have a very strong focus on customer satisfaction. I'm a huge fan of the Fanduel product, and it's why I'm happy to be promoting them here on Forward Progress this season. Right now, all customers get a profit boost every single NFL game day. That means you can pump up your gridiron winnings multiple times a week. Today, Sunday, we have an anytime touchdown score profit boost token. And if you're playing Sunday Night Football tonight, there's a same game parlay profit boost token as well. FanDuel has tons of ways you can get in on the action. You can get money lines, spreads, player props, and more. Plus, with super simple live betting, lightning fast bet settlement, and instant withdrawals, FanDuel makes betting on the NFL easier than ever before. Just visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress to download FanDuel today. You must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration. See terms for offers at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right. Going to keep it moving here. Multiple games to get through. Again, rotation number order, top to bottom as we move through here. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Again, any news comes in, drop it in here while you can so that I can see it. Okay, fourth game, Ravens at Steelers. Really, really interesting matchup. I know groups that have played both sides of this game, there's pretty strong disagreements in market. And because of that, the number has barely moved over the course of the week. We have Baltimore right now, -3, -115, -120 in most spots. Pretty heavily juiced 3. Total got bet up earlier in the week. I was hoping to see some under money so we could get a large position on the total, and it just never came. So we're at pretty much the number that it's been at all week. Start with the Baltimore offense. You have Alex Highsmith out for Pittsburgh. It's a pretty big blow. They have Nick Herbig there, who's a very solid outside edge rusher as well. Preston Smith there as well. Shell of his former self, but still a depth body. The Ravens, I say this every week, feels like you can just quote me and put the same thing. The Ravens move the ball on everybody. It's one of the most efficient offenses I have seen in the past 20 years. When they have stepped up in class against better defenses, they shredded Denver, they shredded Buffalo. KC was week 1, and they got off to a pretty slow start in that game before they had a very big second half. They've played very well when they've stepped up in class. There's a path to success for them running the ball against every team because they have such an efficient running game. They can also throw on other teams. Now, there's a lot of historic stuff to take into account here, right? A lot of the arguments that I've heard made for the Steelers this week are centered around Mike Tomlin owns Lamar Jackson. These teams play a couple times a year. They know how to play them well, this and that. To me, this is a different iteration of the Ravens offense because of their ability to run the ball so successfully. And without Highsmith on the field, we've seen it this year so far. The efficiency numbers on the Pittsburgh defense drop. Opposing teams can really focus in on TJ Watt, double him, chip him on many occasions, and have some success. So to me, I still think Baltimore scoring. The question is, can the Steelers counter that and stay in a higher scoring game? You see the total at 48.5. The market does expect it to be higher scoring. The Ravens are a pass funnel defense. They suck against the pass. They have all year. Kyle Hamilton's going to play. It doesn't matter. Not that it doesn't matter. It matters. He definitely means something to but in the passing game, they have been exposed all year. The issue that I have in handicapping this game, and I know the Steelers have been a little bit more pass heavy or willing to take shots since Russell Wilson has taken over as the quarterback for Pittsburgh. But will Arthur Smith attack this defense? Because they like to run the ball a lot, set up some play action looks. That's kind of their MO. And I could see the game getting away from them early if they're going to waste downs trying to run on Baltimore. Baltimore lost Michael Pierce to IR a couple weeks ago. The run defense should be a little bit worse. But overall this year, they have been elite in stopping the run. So you want to see Pittsburgh throwing the ball. And personally, I've seen this play out many times before with specific coaches, but there's some that stick with their tendencies a lot. And that's an inherent challenge when you want to back the Steelers in this game. So it's tough for me. I still think Baltimore's a much better team. Again, I'm not going to be heavily involved in this game whatsoever. Few stale contest looks and things of that nature. But I'm not, I can't buy Pittsburgh in this spot. I just can't. It would be Baltimore or nothing at this point. From the Steelers offense, Mike Williams didn't play a lot last week. He's expected to get more run as we get going here. My prop look for this game is going to be Calvin Austin over in receiving yards. 23.5 minus 110 at Fanduel is the best in market right now. I like it across market. I think Calvin Austin is not the receiver that gets hurt by Mike Williams. I think it's Van Jefferson. And I know a lot of people were looking to bet Austin unders when this market was opening this week. I disagree. I think he's going to get lots of looks in the slot against a defense that has struggled to cover the slot. And I think, especially if it's a trailing game state, that I really like this number. Some news has come in here, perfectly timed for our next game. Armstead is in for Miami. That'll change my number on the next game a little bit, but let's get to it. Dolphins and Las Vegas. I was not expecting Armstead in just based off of practice squad activations yesterday. So you can upgrade Miami a little bit and you can upgrade my total a little bit. I cannot run it in real time here. I don't want to slow down the machine and risk lagging for everyone at this point. But we'll start there. It was 3 DNPs for Armstead they called it rest/knee injury. He's been dealing with this now for a few years. It wasn't just Armstead. It was their left guard, Robert Jones, who also had a couple limited practices with a knee injury. Those would have been significantly impactful because the right tackle, Austin Jackson, is on IR right now. This is a new look Miami offense. It is very weird relative to previous years under Tua. The average depth of target has dropped quite a bit. They're running a little bit more. There's way less shots downfield. I don't know if this has to do with his concussions and them like really, really emphasizing him getting the ball out of his hands, or if it's just something completely different. Now, Raiders defense has been very hit or miss this year. They would have had some huge advantages on the outside against this Miami offensive front. They don't anymore now. That changes the handicap significantly. But I think you see a lot of what Miami's been doing in recent weeks, leaning on the run a little bit more, and especially in a game where Las Vegas isn't likely to light it up just because of their personnel. I don't think they need to take significant risks in this game as well. On the other side, Las Vegas versus Miami. You have some offensive line injuries for Las Vegas. Cody Whitehair, their left guard, is out. Andrew James, their center. They're not very good offensive linemen. Jackson Powers Johnson, Will Putnam. Putnam was undrafted out of Clemson this year. Will step in. Interior is lacking, has been all year. Miami dealing with the Kendall Fuller injury as well. Now, out of the bye week, it remains to be seen what the Raiders are going to do. I'm very interested in this because they fired Luke Getsy. It seems like they really want to get back to running the ball as much as possible with this offense. Part of the reason, Antonio Pierce can't handle turnovers. They've gotten a bunch of them from Gardner Minshew this year. And he's just an old school guy, wants to run the rock. I don't know how successful that could possibly be. They have the worst EPA per rush rate through 10 weeks of the season of any team in the past 25 years. That's 798 teams tracked by True Media. They are 798th in EPA per rush. It's terrible. I don't know that they're going to magically be able to fix that behind this O-line, and it seems like that's what they want to do. It's a tough spot. I have to mention that because you have the extra rest for the Vegas and you have the short rest for Miami. But that's the strongest argument I can make in favor of the Raiders. Or maybe we just don't know. There's going to be some wrinkles or surprises in the offense. I do think the Dolphins, despite the bad spot, are a decent teaser play this week. Okay. Jacksonville, Detroit. Going to keep it humming along here as much as possible. I'm not going to spend too much time on this game. It's been kind of one-way action on Detroit, but we saw the market's resistance point, which was 14. At 14, Jacksonville got some buyback. We sit at 13.5 here at Fanduel, and about half the shops on the board right now. We also took some serious under money early in this, and then it has been bet back towards the over. Don't love this game. Sam Laporta out for the Lions. I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. The Lions offense is a machine. They move the ball. Even in games where they turn the ball over 5 times via interception, they still find ways to win. This is on their home track against a pass defense in Jacksonville that is very bad. And yeah, they got Tyson Campbell back about a month ago. It slightly improved their pass D, but they're still a pass funnel defense. Detroit will be able to move the ball. And it's unlikely Goff's going to see pressure with his left tackle, Taylor Decker, back in this game as well. Detroit probably scores. It's whether or not Jacksonville can do anything. Trevor Lawrence out. Tank Bigsby out. I would almost never mention the running backs, but Bigsby's so much better than ETN that it matters. We have to keep an eye on the status of their left guard, Ezra Cleveland. He had 3 limited practices. I do think he's going to be back and play this week with an ankle injury. That's important because the backup there, Blake Hance, is one of the worst guards in the league. Has been terrible. Jags offense did nothing last week. Can they do something in a trailing game state today? Possibly. You can throw the ball on Detroit. They're also a pass funnel defense. Will the Jags come out and let Mac Jones try to throw it? I don't know. Zadarius Smith now adds another element to that defense with Aiden Hutchinson out. There's a lot of moving parts here. I think 14 is roughly the right price for the Lions. Don't really think I want to get involved. This prop look I bet myself, and I think this number is extremely suppressed because of how poor the Jags offense was last week. Take into account the Jags played the Vikings, very good defensive coordinator. They were in the game. The score never got super far away from them where the Vikings got to play soft, drop into coverage, any sort of prevent type of stuff. Mac Jones's passing yards right now, FanDuel's 194.5, but there's 189.5s out there. It's ugly. I think we go over on that. Okay. Vikings and Titans. Going to just take a quick sip of coffee here. Another game where I've seen a lot of back and forth. Connor, by the way, this is a good point, and it's factored into my number as well. There's a certain number of iterations where Mac Jones doesn't make it through the game and CJ Beathard is in. I'm pretty close to on market here, side and total. A little bit of money on Tennessee at FanDuel, but most of the market's still at 6 in this game. Total in the game down to 39.5. No strong opinion here. I'll start with Minnesota's offense. L'Jarius Sneed is still out for Tennessee, which you look at the cornerbacks for the Titans with Sneed and Awuzie still on IR against these Minnesota receivers. And you got to think that at some point the Vikings take advantage through the air in this game. The real question is, will Minnesota have that clean game ever again? Because they are still moving the ball. This is back-to-back weeks, Indy and Jacksonville, where they move it. They're 4th in first downs per drive in the last 4 weeks, but they're 29th in red zone efficiency. And part of that has not only been that they don't score in the red zone, it's that they turn the ball over in the red zone. So it's incredibly challenging to handicap. But they move the ball. They just don't score. Will that correct itself? With the weapons that they have at running back, at wide receiver, my gut is that, yes, at some point, Sam Darnold's not going to turn the ball over 3 or 4 times a game. On the other side, you have Will Levis behind a bad O-line. Right tackle Leroy Watson is out. Now, granted, he's probably the worst starting tackle in the league. The backups there are Nicholas Petit-Frere, John Ojukwu, who are also terrible. But a guy who can't feel pressure behind a bad O-line against a defense that sends a ton of pressure, that seems like a recipe for disaster. So it does seem like a game where Tennessee's defense has to hold them in it. Are they capable? They've been pretty much league average across the board this year. It's certainly possible, but I don't know. I think the number is fine. If I was going to play Minnesota, I wouldn't mind playing some Minnesota alternate numbers in this game because it does seem like a game where they can move the ball. And if they have one of those where they score in the red zone, you can probably get some pretty good prices here above a couple touchdowns as well, which would be interesting spots. But I don't have a lot going on in this game. Jair Alexander is active. We see right now. Thank you very much, Jordan. Appreciate you in the chat providing news and also in the Edgework chat every day, providing some anytime goal scorer winners that our hosts refuse to bet. Okay. Seattle, San Fran. Again, going rotation number order. I know we missed the Colts game. That'll be right at the end. Adjustment to my number here. When this was made, it was assuming George Kittle will play. He will not play. So we're going to dock the spread in total here a little bit. I think George Kittle is actually one of the more underrated players in the entire. I know everyone knows George Kittle is good. I don't think people truly appreciate the impact that he has on a particular game. So I would have probably a more significant downgrade than people tend to think it would be. Market is settled at 6 here. Actually, FanDuel's 5.5 minus 118. Total in the game took a lot of under money. has since been bet back up towards the over. And I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. Let's start with the Seattle offense. DK Metcalf is back. Noah Fant still out. Abraham Lucas comes back at right tackle. What we're going to get out of Abraham Lucas, I have no clue. Hasn't played in forever. He's been on the PUP list. What I do know is that Michael Jarrell and Stone Forsythe were playing right tackle for the Seahawks for large parts of this season, and they absolutely stink. So worst case scenario, Lucas stinks, and it's a wash. Best case scenario, he is a big upgrade. Connor Williams retired this week. I don't know what the hell was up with that, but Oluwatimi gets the start. He's never played center before. Drafted out of Michigan last year. How's that going to impact things? Well, Connor Williams was providing some bad snaps this year, but some good blocking. You might probably, I don't know what the situation is going to be there, but there's a lot of things in flux for the Seattle O-line. Travarius Ward is out again for San Fran. The big thing for me is Nick Bosa. I really want to watch this because if Bosa does not play today, I mean, you will see a market reaction, but I like the 6 if Bosa doesn't play today. DNP, limited practice, dealing with a hip injury, talked about the extreme pain that he had to play through last week. It does sound like there's a decent chance that he might not play today. And that would matter a lot this year because the 49ers defense, I talked about this last week, is not the same as it has been in years past. Their pressure rates are lower. Their EPA and success rate numbers are lower, especially against the pass. The one thing that Seattle constantly kills them, they take negative plays every drive. But you remove Bosa from the equation, and that changes things quite a bit. Sorry, Dennis Rodman, fake Dennis Rodman here. What I meant to say is he hasn't played center in the NFL, but do appreciate that he did play center in college. Thank you for the correction. Other side, Trent Williams. 3 times DNP, ankle injury. The drop-off from Trent Williams to Jalen Moore, if Williams played and got hurt or didn't, would be substantial. You have the other left side of the O-line, Aaron Banks at guard, who's played very well this year, dealing with a thigh injury. His backup, Spencer Burford, terrible. Like, these are significant, impactful injuries all around to San Francisco. And yes, I think at some point, 49ers red zone efficiency is going to get better with CMC. That's going to happen. But is it going to be in a game where they have a banged up left side of the O-line, one of their best offensive weapons in George Kittle not playing? I don't know. So I'm personally setting a lot of alerts, and I'll be monitoring the pregame stuff for Seattle San Fran today. But depending on how the injury situation plays out, I will have likely some interest in the Seattle Seahawks in this game today. Okay. Thank you, Jim. We got the Jair Alexander stuff. Forgot Evan Williams was a game time decision at safety for them as well. That's there. Jalen Warren active. That was one that was reported last night, was going to take pregame warm up and see how things were going. So we got that. Oh, Warner active for the Saints with the hand injury. That's a little bit of a surprise. He was limited Friday. I had him 50-50 in my number for today as well. So a bunch of injury news rolling in at once here. Again, I'll take some questions later on in the show, but just want to keep it moving through the rest of the games that we have here. A couple games coming up here that I have some opinions on, starting with Atlanta and Denver. I'm pretty far off market on this game. Market is -1.5 Fanduel, -2 in some spots, total 44.5, 45. It's been bet up. I'm I'm going to be rooting pretty heavily for Denver today. I don't. So again, market is the market, right? At this point, market has spoken. Here's the number. I don't personally believe that the cornerback injuries for the Falcons have been priced properly in this game. For me, where the market is sitting at right now would be close to what I would have for fair value if both teams were healthy, probably in the Denver -1 range. But we have Mike Hughes starting corner, D. Alford starting slot corner, Antonio Hamilton, who would be the next in line as a backup, all out today for the Falcons. This is what the Falcons do well, is cover. They don't generate pass rush. Their front seven is not the best at stopping the run. They get away with it because they can cover. And in this particular game, you have an offensive line who can really pass protect. Denver's O-line has been very good in pass protection this year against a team that cannot generate pressure with no corners. And sure, it's fair to ask, is Bo Nix going to be the guy to take advantage of this? I mean, we've seen it this year when he's been given time to throw. He's been good in those types of situations. So I don't really agree with the prices. I don't agree with a single thing XS is saying about the Falcons corners right now either. This is also what gets me, by the way. I love this. I'm going to go into a tangent here. When people are like, oh, this guy should have got benched. They have this guy in there. You guys not think the coaches know this and watch the players in practice every day? That's my favorite argument. It's like, oh yeah, there's 3 of their 4 corners are out. Upgrade the team. Like, what are we talking about here? I think Denver team total over is maybe the best look if you're not comfortable with the spread. I think the Broncos are scoring a lot in this game. Question is whether Atlanta can match or not. I do really like the Atlanta Falcons offense still. It's a tough matchup because the Broncos defense is fairly good. Brandon Jones is dealing with an injury. He's had a great season. I'd really like Brandon Jones to play. There's some areas that you can expose Denver. Over the middle of the field is one. Perhaps Kyle Pitts has a decent game. You know, Kirk Cousins, people drop fake narratives about him. Plays well outdoors. I don't think any of this is going to be a challenge. Patrick Surtain on Drake London takes him away. The secondary receivers will have to do well. But ultimately, I do not think that Denver, the Atlanta cornerback injuries are being priced correctly. I really don't. Rooting for the Broncos today. Next game, KC Buffalo. I'll be rooting for the Chiefs today. Again, another game where the market price would be close to what my fair market price would be if both teams were healthy in the game. But seems like there's a very good chance right now that Spencer Brown will miss this game due to the practice squad call-ups from yesterday. We know Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid are out, and we know that the Chiefs are healthy. And I think all of that matters. I still would make Buffalo a small favorite here. And remember, like Wednesday, I gave this as my best bet on forward progress, which, by the way, best bets for me have not been good this year. But I talk about Mahomes as a dog, right? That's narrative to add to the argument, because I think that there's possibly something there that maybe the modeling doesn't account for. But my raw number in the game, doesn't know. The model doesn't know about Mahomes as a dog. It's just simulating the two teams against one another and spitting out a number. And for this game, I don't agree with it. You can call it the squarest play in the world. I heard this about 1 million times when KC's in the same situation. Happens all the time. Happened in the playoffs last year against Baltimore. Oh, everyone loves KC. This galaxy brain ourselves into laying a bunch of points with Baltimore. Happened with San Fran earlier this year. And this is not to suggest Buffalo can't win. But Spencer Brown, DNP, limited practice. Ryan Van Demark, undrafted out of UConn. Richard Gorege, undrafted out of Florida, are the other tackles on the roster. One of those guys is going to have to step in and block George Karlaftis if Brown doesn't play. And if Brown does play, I mean, the guy could barely practice on Friday. Seems like a problem. The weapons as a whole are a problem. Again, like, how many times have I heard arguments so far this week of like, oh, Dawson Knox is just going to step in. Well, Dalton Kincaid is better than Dawson Knox. And they have two tight end sets where it's Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox that are no longer Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. They are Dawson Knox and Quinton Morris or Zach Davidson. It's a difference to the game altogether. Other side of things, KC's offense, it's really weird because they can't generate explosives. They really don't. Anytime they target Xavier Worthy down the field, the guy looks like he's never ran a route in his life, standing out of bounds, trying to catch balls. I don't get it. Juju Smith-Schuster's back this week. That'll help a little bit. I don't know where he's going to fit into the offense now with DeAndre Hopkins back there as well. Everything's underneath, but they're just like success rate you to death. I keep saying this every week. Just successful play after successful play after successful play. 4-yard run, that works in their favor. 4-yard pass. They get themselves into good situations. And even when they're stuck in 3rd and long, Mahomes has done a great job of converting those this year. Their success rate on 3rd and 7 or more is 45%. There's only one other quarterback in the league that's more than 40. It's Lamar Jackson. You look at Josh Allen in the same situations, he's 33%. So they've done a really good job of doing this. I think the number is wrong. Again, market's probably more valuable than my opinion. I don't deny it. But at this point, I'm going Kansas City. Cincy and the LA Chargers was flexed from a late game to Sunday Night Football. That's where I am going next. Don't really have a strong opinion here now that it looks like Orlando Brown is not going to play in this game. In fact, I'm right on market. Oddly, the Bengals took money today on the Orlando Brown news. So someone really likes Cincinnati in this game. Total's just been bet up, one-way action over the course of the week. I think it's maybe a little bit too high now with the Brown injury. So he's dealing with like a knee or fibula problem. Cody Ford is the backup tackle there, and he's a brutal left tackle. One thing to keep a big eye on, though, is whether or not Khalil Mack ends up going for the Chargers. I have not seen an update yet on Khalil Mack, but 3 times DNP with a groin injury. That would be an enormous loss. Mack is playing so well this year. He's second in the NFL in snaps per splash play at 12.0. They do have Tuli Tuipulotu, who they drafted. He's been solid. Bud Dupree is washed. It's a downgrade. So that's something to keep in mind and would affect how I price this game. Joe Burrow has been great. They can't win because their defense has been given up a lot this season. This is a step up for the Chargers defense. It's been really good. They've allowed the least points per game in the NFL. They've also played a really easy schedule of opposing pass offenses. So you get T. Higgins back. What's this going to look like? I don't necessarily know. I was going to give out a prop in this game. I'm going to back off of it now just because of the prices in market. So I'm not even going to mention what it was because I know people are going to go bet it anyways, but it's gone. Don't want to give it. So that's that. Other side, Chargers O Cincy D. Trey Hendrickson's going to play. Dealing with a personal matter, flew out, going to meet the team for this particular game. BJ Hill on the defensive line as well. I expect him to play 2 times limited practice with the knee. Chargers offense is a weird one. They're at full health now. They have their wide receivers. It's not the best wide receiver room, but it's fairly deep. Herbert's protected well. They still rely a lot on the run. I know they've gotten more into the neutral pass scenarios over recent weeks, but they play slow. And that's my biggest challenge with all the money coming in on the over in this game. The Chargers play so freaking slow. There's a reason all their games end up so low scoring. They bleed clock so much. They're efficient with their completions. Clock keeps moving. They run the ball, but it's such a slow moving offense. That's why I can't get to the 48 at this point. Tough game overall to handicap. I'll have some stuff for this 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight on the watch along right before we go get started. If you don't know what we do on Sunday nights, first half of the game, me and Clive Bixby will review the day that was, and we'll start looking ahead to the openers of the upcoming week and some potential value bets. Last week we had 4. Colts, Jets under 45. Good CLV there. Bills, Chiefs under 46.5. That's a wash. Cleveland plus 2.5 against New Orleans. Really good CLV there. Green Bay, Chicago under 42.5. Those were the early looks. All got some CLV, but that's that. Final game. The game that was flexed out, thankfully. I would much rather be watching Bengals Chargers than Colts Jets. I think there's a lot of people that are really confused with this game. And in particular, so we got the wrong spread up on screen there. But my actual number in this game is Jets minus 4.1 in this particular one. 4.1. Market has now gone a little bit too far, but I know the Jets are bad. I talked about this with Clive last Sunday night when the line was 3. And we couldn't really agree on the game. But Bernard Raymond is out at left tackle. Now, Braden Smith, it's been announced that he's going to play. It's a personal matter. That's big because their backup tackles, Matt Goncalves, Blake Freeland, they're not very good. They already have a rookie center and right guard out there. But you're looking at rookie center, right guard, and left tackle for today's game. Has the Jets defense given up? I don't know. It's really hard for me to model that. I just model based off of their production in previous games. I don't decrease for a team having quote unquote given up. Jonathan Taylor's rushing numbers are a lot better with Trent Richardson at quarterback. Judah pointed this out a couple weeks ago on Wednesday Best Bets. I think Indy wants to run the ball a lot in this spot, but with 3 rookie O-linemen, I don't know how successful they'll be, even as bad as the Jets have been defensively. Other side of the ball, though, I don't trust the Jets offense enough. I think the best look in this game by a mile was the under, where you got left tackle Tyron Smith out for the Jets as well. Hasn't had his best year, but still a big downgrade to the rookie there, Penn State, Olu Fashanu. Rodgers not likely to face a ton of pressure in this game. More likely to be able to sit back in the pocket and throw on this Gus Bradley cover 3 defense that doesn't send a lot of pressure. So at this point, I kind of am like, I do think it's gone a tad too far, but 4's on the board. Yeah, it's kind of settled where I thought it would settle. Did I say Trent Richardson? If I said Trent Richardson, T-Rich. Remember Trent Richardson? God, man, what a bust Trent Richardson was. That guy. Terrible mobility. Terrible. Okay. Fries. Underrated fact. I can't believe Rob has shelf space. It's because I'm moving and I've started packing some stuff already. All right. Let's go through some comments here before I get into anytime touchdown scores for this week as well. Anthony Richardson, 2+ rushing touchdowns, 20-1. Listen, I don't love it, but he does have a penchant when they're in the red zone to keep things to himself or try for rushing touchdowns. We saw this last year, especially when he came on the scene in the early going. I don't hate that. Karlaftis over sacks +2. I would agree that I think it's plus EV. Although you have to remember, Josh Allen doesn't take a lot of sacks either. So that's important as well. It's actually a good. Okay, I'm going to skip that one for now. What else do we got here? Survivor. I talked about this guys already. I can't do anything related to Survivor. Who would you take in a spread pick'em league? Green Bay -6.5 or Chicago? So honestly, I value the market more than my own numbers unless I really, really disagree with it. I basically would look at the market for most spread pick'em leagues, unless you're trailing a lot, in which case you might have to do something different. But I would take Chicago at 6.5. You being 2 points off this market worry you, Rob? Never really, honestly. It is what it is. Sometimes I value certain things more than market and no others. We do got what do we got? A feed me here? New Orleans Saints. Thank you, Suma. Tunes on the Saints. I do agree that the number's gone a little bit too far now. How do you price the 1 mil? Didn't need to see this morning, Carlos. Rob, if a beat reporter said Deontay Johnson will be more involved this week, do we lay units on him? I know lots of people who have still been fading Deontay Johnson. I believe the coaching staff is not super happy with him right now either, and his attitude, so to speak. And honestly, depends on the beat reporter nowadays because so many of them just suck. Thoughts on Jags first half team total? I don't know if you're looking towards the over or the under. Let me just take a quick first half. Game props, team total first half, Jags 7.5, juiced heavily to the under. Seems priced pretty correctly to me. If I was looking towards Jags scoring, it would likely be in the latter half. Is there a season-long anytime touchdown record, or does it not matter because of the week? Don't know what that's referring to. Track them individually. They're slightly positive this year. They're more for recreation, I guess, although I do think that they're edges. And there's going to be huge variance, by the way, like giving 3 a week in these types of, Anyways, you're not going to want to parlay the ones I give today, but let's do it. 3, anytime touchdowns. These are uglier than normal. Reminder, don't go crazy. If you want to parlay them, sure. They're not. I mean, if 3 for 3 hits, this would be a much bigger miracle than the ones that hit on week 2. Like a much, much bigger miracle. Start with the Bills. I'm going to go Quentin Morris, 11-1, Fanduel. You need roughly, I priced them at plus 780. So that's the break even. Played 35% of snaps last week when Kincaid was hurt. I do think they'll utilize some 2 tight end sets, especially in the red zone, especially with Amari Cooper injured. Playing injured. 11-1, Quentin Morris. Detroit Lions. Timmy Patrick. 6-1, Fanduel. Need plus 425 or better on Tim Patrick. Blowout game is expected, judging by the spread. If you do look back to Lions blowout games and look at their wide receiver snaps, especially in the second half, Tim Patrick tends to get a ton of run. That's the pricing there. If you wanted to get super cute with a Lions type of bet, I'm not going to throw it in here, but Craig Reynolds, who's the third string running back, to score the last TD of the game, would be a very good look. I wouldn't play him anytime. I would only play him last. Finally, Michael Mayer, 14-1. This is pure gut feel for the Las Vegas Raiders. He's active today for the first time in a while. You need plus 950 or better on Michael Mayer. Obviously, Mayer was the big shit in town when they drafted him up down to 1,100 right now. Got hit. Had a personal issue that the team didn't really want to talk about. They kind of handled it like I would expect the team to if somebody has a personal issue. He's back. This is pure gut feeling, but he did get targeted in every single game when he was healthy for the first 3 games of the year, when he was in the lineup. I do expect him to be involved a little bit more in the offense. I think that's a decent price. That's a pure gut feeling bet. All right. I think that's going to be it for me. 3 nasty. What was the parlay, Jason? Just out of curiosity, just so I know. 77,000. Don't parlay that. Don't parlay that. That's a tough one. All right. Reminder, I'm back tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Here, I will give out props right at 8 p.m. Eastern time for Bengals and Chargers. You can tune in for that. First half of the game, me and Clive Bixby, we are going through all of next week's games. You can also tune in for that. Lock in some early value. Listen, I do many things miserably and not well. One thing we do well is getting out ahead of the market for the upcoming week. That's one thing you want to tune into. Appreciate everyone in the chat, including Ekshesh, who shows up here every single morning and thinks he's Billy Walters. But I do appreciate you regardless because it keeps the YouTube algorithm going. Jeffrey the Giraffe, Brian D, Johnny C, Nash, Alan Lopez, all you guys, Jordan, Brandon Shoemaker, please smash that like button on the way out if you haven't. Enjoy your day. Good luck with your bets. Unless you're opposite me, I can't wish you good luck. But for the rest of them, good luck. And of course, make sure you're betting responsibly today. Lots of stuff happened this week. I know a lot of you bet on Tyson, unfortunately. I don't know what happened with the UFC last night and if you faded John Jones. But if you did, today's not the day to win it back. It's the long run that we're worried about. So bet within your limits. I'll see you back here tonight on Forward Progress. It's been the Pizza Buffet, Week 11 in the NFL, presented by Fanduel. Peace out. Enjoy the day, everyone.